In this video, we're going to be critiquing Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark through a post-colonialist lens. For you to understand this whole video, it's important for me to tell you what post-colonialism is as a theory. Post-colonialism focuses upon an assessment of an empire and the aftermath of its reign. Raiders of the Lost Ark is a story set in 1936. The villains, according to Prop's character theory, are the Nazis. 1936 is a time period which depicts Nazis in their negative light, thus expressing them as the leading antagonists. For a film to follow the conventions of a post-colonialism theory, there are specific aspects which must be featured in the content of the film. For example, the exploration of relationships between nations or areas that have been colonised, set in a time period following colonialism, and it addresses race, gender, racism, ethnicity and other aspects which can be perceived as sensitive. Now we know what post-colonialism is, it's important to also know what the movie is about and how it really identifies with post-colonialism. Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark is a film which is the first movie in the Indiana Jones franchise, which is to continue in 2021. The film was directed by Steven Spielberg, yet created by George Lucas, and was released in 1981 by Paramount Pictures. As two of the greatest names in cinema were involved in the production of the movie, it was one of the highest grossing films, bringing in over $380 million worldwide, and in 1982 was nominated for 8 Academy Awards. Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark is captured by a post-colonialist lens, therefore that's what we're going to analyse it by. To supply you guys with a little bit more of a summary of the story, it's set in the early half of the 20th century. The film is the story of an archaeologist named Indiana Jones, who's been set on the objective by the US government to retrieve the Ark of Covenant. The Ark is believed to hold 10 commandments. In its quest to retrieve the Ark, Jones has close encounters with several antagonists, such as the Jungle Tribe and the Nazis. My opening topic will address the post-colonialist critique of Jones's appearance and behaviour in Raiders of the Lost Ark. The audience are observing a story which portrays a colonialist character. This is represented through several conventions of Western colonialists. The first being the mise-en-scène of the character. The mise-en-scène displays masculinity and the stereotypes of a traditional colonialist. As well as him being bright and having bright eyes, he's also not cleanly shaven, thus depicting his masculinity at first glance. The costume adheres to Western stereotypes as props of the character, such as the whip, represent repression through events such as slavery. The character's occupation outside of his heroic persona is a professor of archaeology. Therefore, from the opening movie he's portrayed as intelligent, once again appealing to the typical conventions of a colonialist. In addition to his colonialist appearance, Indiana Jones is depicted throughout the film to have a very manly personality, according to the stereotypes. The character has specific treatment of certain genders. As well as this, he's portrayed as a superior to those third world countries and women. For example, his attitude towards women can be described as rude, as if they're disposable. This fact is not only expressed by the various numbers of intimate moments between him and a different woman throughout the whole franchise, but is also shown through a scene where a woman offers her help to Jones, after she observes cuts and wounds on his chest and back. However, Jones masculinely replies, "I don't need your help."
Wait, I don't need any help.
You do.
Please, I don't need a nurse. I just want to sleep.
He's such a baby.
Marion, leave me.
How is this here?
Go away.
Within Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark, there are several antagonists, the main being the Nazis. In the opening minutes of the film, Indiana Jones is running away from an indigenous tribe, of which a white man has sent them. This not only depicts the tribes to be aggressive and act as slaves to the antagonist archaeologist, but during the chase scene, the director uses positioning of characters as well as camera shots and angles to make Jones look more athletic and bigger, thus also supporting the colonialist character.
Start the engine! Get it up!
character's appearance and behaviour, Indiana Jones is the perfect representation of Western dominance, all wrapped in strength, good looks, and desired manliness, all including the stereotypical male Western ego. He appears to be superior to those of different genders and cultures, which depicts him as perfect. In order to explore post-colonialism further within Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's important to observe beyond the representation of the protagonist, as the antagonists are also presented through a Western lens. Like Jones, these types of people are colonialist characters within the film, thus they're portrayed as the villains. Nazis follow the same stereotypical convention within this film as they do in many others, such as a strong, thick German accent, and always wanting to cause pain and warfare on others. Another example of the antagonist is the jungle tribes. The opening scene of this film is filled with these stereotypes of jungle tribes that are seemingly uncivilized and clearly do not like outsiders such as Jones, as they chase him off with spears and arrows. The reason these segregations of people are depicted in a negative way is because we are viewing them in a Western perspective. The Western stereotypes of minorities portrays them as underdeveloped, duller, and overall inferior to the stereotypical white male. Thus, throughout the film, we're perceiving the Nazis and the tribes as less powerful, less intelligent, whereas the protagonist, who is a white male, beholds the characteristics of strength, attractiveness, superiority amongst other characters in the film. Finally, the colonialist narrative of the film portrays stereotypical characters from a biased perspective. This is shown as the hero is white, the villains are the Nazis and tribes, and they're the disruption to the protagonist according to Todoro's theory. Raiders of the Lost Ark follows the story of Indiana Jones going to amazing places such as Cairo and retrieving historical artifacts before the Germans can. This is when he brings them back to American museums, which is where they belong. Subsequently, if this narrative wasn't colonialist, then Jones would be portraying a thief, thus treating him as an antagonist. However, since he's a white male and we're viewing it through a colonialist lens, he is the protagonist. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy. Yeah.